Hello and welcome. I'm trying out a new setup to do this recording, so I hope it works. I'm trying it with a microphone, so we'll see how that works out as well. And we're going to make this really cute pattern. It's called, I call it a floating spine. And it's really fun. You'll want to do all of your cuts and place them in piles like I've done, if you want to go along with me. So like I've cut these two hinges and I've cut my little guide. You just need one there. I, for some reason, have two, but you just need 1 1/4-inch guide. But if you read through the document that I've uploaded, it tells you step by step the cuts we're going to make. And then we're going to get together now and we're going to create the album. We'll make our cover and then we'll do our insert pages. I'll do all the scoring with you together. So hopefully we have some fun. I'm going to take a moment here and find my video on my laptop. Just helps me keep my hands in the camera. Yep, I see it. Okay. And I'm muted so I don't have to hear it. There we go. All right, so yeah, that looks like a pretty good camera. I've added a lamp, so I feel so fancy. I'm going to set this aside, get it out of the way. So if you haven't done that, you'll probably want to do that first. Download your document that's here in the files. I'll also make sure it's pinned up in features. And then together we're going to follow the instructions and complete the rest step by step. Okay, so I've cut my chipboard pieces, and pardon these brown gloves. I might take them off in the middle, but I've got kind of arthritis hands. I've got an appointment to see a doctor next couple of weeks, so we'll see if they can tell me what's really going on. So pardon those ugly brown gloves. All right, so we're going to add our chipboard in a certain order. We're going to start with one piece that is the 6 3/4 by 5. And then the next piece we want is the 2-inch piece. Whoops, got to turn it this way. Whoops. All right, and then the 2-inch piece. And then another one of the large pieces right here. This is going to be the widest work that we'll do together on camera. So I've got it pretty close so we can see, but also I think we can see most of the width. Okay, so we did our next larger one, and then we want to find the one that's 1 3/4. Then the last one we're going to place is the 1 1/2. So that's the order you're going to want to put your pieces of chipboard on. I'll flip that one upside down, right side up. Okay, so I'm going to use a clear glue because I like to be able to slide it into place. And the first one, really, we're just going to make sure we've got a little bit of room on that left so we have paper left to fold over. So that looks like enough to me, maybe 1 inch, maybe a little bit more. Now here we're going to want to leave a nice gap between the two. If you get it too close and you go to bend your album cover, it's going to crack your paper. We don't want to crack our paper. So probably about 1/4 inch. Where's my little spare? If you want to cut a piece, give it as a guide. It's a good guide. And then we'll do the next larger one. Just kind of making sure I'm even top and bottom. Looking pretty good. And 1/4 inch might be a little generous, but it won't hurt anything. And 1/8 inch is too small. Just turn on a little bit of air in my room. So next is that 1 3/4 piece that we've got. I'll bring over my guide since I actually had an extra. Just kind of nice. And I'll do the last piece. Making the album covers is one of my favorite things to do. Mine's got a little bit of a rough cut there, but that won't matter. So I can move that along the edge. Close enough. Can't get a hold of that. There we go. There we go. So that's the placement. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna let this set for a minute because it takes a little bit for this clear glue to set up, which is what's allowing it that slide time. Now I have a pencil handy. You'll need a pair of scissors. I do happen to have a miter corner, so I can mark my angle to cut these corners at. You can just eyeball it and cut them with scissors. They're also called a corner jig. All right, so I feel like I'm safe. I can pick this up, so I'm going to go ahead and trim right where I trace that line. You just want to leave about a 1/16 at least on between your chipboard and the paper. You don't want to cut right to the edge of your chipboard there. There we go. All right, so the next thing we're going to want to do, I take my bone folder. So let me pull in my scoreboard and get my bone folder. And I'm going to just take my bone folder along all 4 sides here. And what that's doing is just kind of starting to bend that paper in the area that we're going to fold it up. Move that up a little bit, you can see what I'm doing. All right, and I'll turn it to the other end. And again, last side. Okay, we've got that. So this is a very long end. So I just start folding in the middle up over my chipboard. You can use a piece of 12 by 12 paper like this that's just cut to 6 by 12, 2 of those. It gives you less here to fold up, but there's enough. Or this, I had 2 8.5 by 11 pieces. Again, just kind of in the middle there. Fold it up along all those edges. And I'm just going to do my top 2 first, and then I'll do my ends in just a minute. So now I'm going to work with my art glitter glue and get my glue on all 4 edges. And then a little bit down the middle for good measure. And just start to push it up until it grabs. Okay, that feels good. I'll let it dry for a minute and I'll come back and crease it with the bone folder. We'll flip to the other side, do the same exact thing. And I hate to jinx it, but my art glitter glue has really been working nicely lately. I was on some Facebook page where they were just really not happy with art glitter glue and that fine tip. I like that little pucker there. And I have had challenges for sure, but I sure love how this glue works. Okay, I've got this fine tip. I've got a pucker under there, so I must have missed getting some glue. So I just stuck some glue under there while I could. All right, so now I'm gonna go with the first one that I did, take my bone folder, just make sure all of that paper and glue is making good contact to the chipboard underneath, and a nice crease. And now I'll do the bottom side. All right, so now I've got this little nub in here. I'm just gonna fold that up. Just right there on the corner. Do the same thing on this one. That finger didn't want to work. Okay. And now I'm going to fold up that edge and in. And since I've already got this in camera, I'm going to go ahead and glue this one down. So I'll put my glue on all 4 sides and just a little in that middle and hold it until it starts to grab. And I'll flip it around to the opposite end, do the same thing. So I'm going to push in that little nub. Just push it up a little bit. Just like that. And now I'll push that end up and in. Right. I'm going to go ahead and put my pen back into my glitter glue. So we've done our wrap. Now we're going to make our insert pages. So we're going to set this aside and let it dry for a couple minutes. So we're going to need our scoreboard, and you're going to find your insert pages that you've already cut. So I've got my larger and my smaller. Okay. So we're going to be scoring the larger pieces. So I'll bring the scoreboard in here, make sure that it's in camera, looking good. Okay, so now we want to score along the 5 3/4. So I'm at 5 3/4 there, and we're going to score it at half and at 5 1/4. So it's leaving another half on this end, half and half. We'll do that on all of these. At our half mark, and then our 5 1/4. Whoops, I slid. There we go. So it might almost be easier if you want to do this. You can just do it at a half, which I think I'm going to do from now on. Flip it to the opposite end and do it at a half again. I'm going to make sure this has got a good score. Take it along my half. Where I missed the road there. So always along your 5 3/4. And our, whoops, got 2 more to go. Felt like 1 at first. And then the last one here. All right, I'm going to take a quick drink of water, so bear with me. I just drop the lid on the floor. Okay, so now whenever I score, had a little water there, I'm going to fold my score, and then I'm going to burnish it with my bone folder. We're going to do that on all of these. This just helps your album kind of open and close a little smoother and have a crisper finish. This is a little intimidating to me at first, this pattern with the floating hinge. And then after I made it 3 times, I was actually laying in bed trying to think about building the class, and I went, aha, I got it in my head. I was like, okay, I get this. So be patient with yourself. Because if I can do it, you can do it. And hopefully now that I've got more of an I get it in my head, we can make it easy. For the next step, we want to glue these to our smaller pieces. So I'm going to take my smaller piece, my first one, I'm going to lay it up here along the ridge of my scoreboard. And then I'm going to take my glitter glue, and I want my glue to be on the outside edge. So that's a nice closed seam when I put them together. I'm just going to slide it up here a little bit along my edge. So hopefully I'm actually gluing them fairly straight. And I'll lift it up and add the same amount of glue to the same outer edge of that other scored piece. lay it down and push it together. So we've just made a little pouch. A little extra glue there. All right, so we're going to do that 6 times. So I'm just using the ledge of this scoreboard as kind of my guide to line it up straight. Does not take a lot of glue. And another little pouch. Be careful with this. I've gotten glue on my scoreboard and had to go clean it off. And just pushing it down there. So things should be pretty straight. And this little groove that I made with my bone folder is not going to hurt anything. We'll get it all covered up with pretty paper. All right. I have eyeballed it too. That works just fine. A little glue on my scoreboard. All right, then our instructions say we're going to set these aside. So we'll do that. Okay, so we've got some more work to do here. So you should have a piece cut that is 6 1/8 by 2 7/8, and you should have one more piece of chipboard. So it's this 1 3/4 piece of chipboard, and it is 2 7/8, which mine's a little sloppy here, but it'll be fine. And then 6 1/8. So we're going to score this little piece of black paper on all 4 sides at 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to begin on one side. I'm going to turn it, quarter turn, and again. All right, we're going to take our scissors, and at that intersection, we're going to cut at that point on all 4 intersections. All right. So remember, anytime I score, I'm going to fold them all and then burnish them before I work with that piece. Okay, so what we're going to do now is cover this piece. So I'm going to put my 1 3/4 inside along that edge, and I'm going to take some glue on all 4 sides and press it down. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on my other end. And if all your chipboard on this side doesn't get covered up, it's not a problem because we're going to cover it more. So just depending on how you pressed in your scissors onto your intersection and the angle. Mine seems to be covering pretty good. I got a little sneak showing up here. It's not going to be a problem. If it's not, if I keep pressing down and it's not sticking, then there must be no glue. All the pressing in the world is not going to have it stick if there's no glue. And I'll do the same thing on this side. So we're just covering that extra piece of chipboard. This is our floating spine. All right. So now we have another piece that we cut. Let me find it in the instructions. Okay, so we covered our chipboard. So now this piece is 2 1/8 by 4 7/8. And along the 2 1/8 place, we're going to score it at 3/4 of an inch. So 1, 2, 3/4. All right. And I'm going to fold it this way and back, and I'm going to take my bone folder. So we're going to glue this onto the black side because when it floats, we're going to cover this side with pretty decorator paper. We're going to glue the longer piece to the spine, the floating spine. This we're going to glue into the album. So we're going to want this flush along this edge. So I'm going to put my glue, and I'm going to use some white glue because I want it to grab fairly nicely, quickly, and this will give it a little slide time. Okay, whoops. So again, I've got this folded back. I'm laying my wider side down. I'm just going to eyeball top and bottom here that I'm pretty even. And I'm sliding it flush onto this piece of chipboard that we've just covered with the black paper. And I'm lifting it up just to make sure it looks pretty flush here. Now that it's had a minute, I'm going to take my bone folder, burnish all my surface. All right, so there we go. All right, so let me read here. I'm out of order. We need 2 pieces. And these are, we're going to cover the spine. So these you cut to 3 3/4 by 4 3/4. You have 2 of those. So let's get our album back out because we're getting ready to put this floating spine in. So let's find our album. Where did I put mine to safely dry? I lost it. Oh, here it is, up high. All right. So the long piece is our left side. We're going to cover these 2 spines, this one and this one. Okay, so we're just going to center them up. What helps to do that, take your bone folder, and along those grooves, let's take the bone folder and kind of show that line, because that gives us an eyeball of where to visually watch when we're centering it up top and bottom and left and right. So while I've got my bone folder handy, I'll do the same thing on this one. Okay, so now I'm going to add my glue, and I think I'm going to use my clear glue. All right, so as I place it down here, I'm going to slide it so that I have nice and even top and bottom, and that I've got about the same overlap on my left and my right. I had a little extra glue there, so because it is Fabri-Tac, it'll just rub away. All right. It's looking pretty good to me. So I'm gonna let that set up for a minute and I'll come back and burnish it. Let's go do this one. I'm just looking top and bottom, same amount of overhang left and right. Close enough. It's all also going to be covered up with our Pretty Decorator papers. All right, I'm going to go back to the first one, take my bone folder. Just make sure that this paper and the glue makes good contact to the album cover that we just glued it to. Sometimes it does push out some extra glue when you do that. That's fine. Means we're getting it all spread out. Okay, so now I can see where that groove is, so I'm going to take my bone folder and do the same thing. Just like that. You will need a large, heavy, strong magnet to hold this closed. We're getting ready to do the magnet next. So let me grab my magnet. I'll be right back. I had kind of buried it. This is a basic gray set. So what I'm going to do next is just gently start to fold these edges. Just be gentle with it. Let it all find that bend. And then I'm going to have my smaller piece come over to the top of my front piece. So what I'll do now, and I'm going to do this a little differently. It's better to place the magnet closer to this edge. You'll want to leave a little bit of room to glue your paper. That I'm going to gear it closer to this edge because it'll close better onto our front album cover. So as close to the edge I think I can get and still have room to glue away some paper. I'm just kind of eyeballing my center. And I do think I need about that much to get the glue around it with paper. Here's my minus. Peel that off. So now what I'm going to do is pull my album toward me, and I'm going to line it right to that groove we just did. And I'm going to press up and press those two together. So now our album is held closed with that magnet. Perfect. Isn't this so fun? All right, let's put our spine in there. So to put our floating spine, it's going to get glued here, and then all of our pages are glued along here. So that's a visual for you. We don't want to go over this road. Oops, and now I didn't put my pin in. Let's see if I get that going again. There we go. So just along that little flap that we've let hang over. So I'm going to look at the black as I glue it onto my page. And push it over just a little bit towards that spine. So close but not over. Got a little bit more room, I can move it. It grabs nicely and quickly. There we go. A little extra glue, but that doesn't matter. So there's our floating spine in our album. Thought me was catching, but it's not. So everything's looking good there. I think it's catching on my scoreboard. All right, so looking good. So there we've got our floating hinge inserted, and we'll cover this with real pretty decorator paper when we get to decorating. Perfect. Okay, so now the next trick is we've got our hinges that all of those pages are going to live on. So we need some scoring on our 3 hinges, and you'll want your guide. So we're going to lay them along the 1 1/4. We're going to score it at 1/2 and at 3/4. So we're just making a little 1/4 inch gusset in the middle there. So at 1/2 and 3/4. We've got one more to do. 1/2 and 3/4. All right, so then on these, same thing. For each of those scores, I'm going to fold it and burnish it. And you're going to want to find your 2-sided tape, 3/8 to 1/4, nothing bigger because it would be larger than the piece that we've got to work with. All right, so now I've got all 3 of them. The next thing we're going to want to do, find your 2-sided tape. I need to grab mine. I'll be right back. And it's easier to put this 2-sided tape on now, I think, instead of waiting till later once we get the little hinges into the book. Trying to find there's my edge. So I never worry, I can extend the length here because I'm going to trim these with scissors when I'm done. So this is going to get glued in here, so we want our score tape to be focused toward that outside edge, which would be the top when we put it in our album. Doesn't have to be perfect. Flip it around, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right, and we're gonna do this on all 3 of them, but I'll show you the next steps. I'll take my scissors and I'll just trim that excess. And then the other thing I do is I take my bone folder and I burnish that score tape that I just placed down there to the piece of paper that we just placed it on. All right, so we'll do that 2 more times. That's really long. I'll just tear that out of the way. All right, and I'll do these while I'm on a roll and then come back and trim them and burnish them. Do you see I've kind of pulled my score tape, my two-sided tape out like a spool of ribbon? Sometimes it makes it go a little faster for me. All right, so let's roll up my score tape and trim these guys. Okay. On this next step that we'll take, I definitely am going to use my art glitter glue. I want it to grab pretty quickly. And I want a narrow section. So you see the line where we added our piece of paper to the chipboard? That's the line that I'm going to glue my 1/4 inch right along that edge. Okay, so I've got it folded over so I can get to that 1/4 inch gusset that we left with no score tape on it. And I'm going to lay it right up along that edge where we just put that paper. I'm going to center it top and bottom, pretty close. Okay, this is now where we're going to place this 1/4 inch guide right up along that edge. Same thing, we're going to take our glue and glue it on the 1/4 inch gusset. And I'm going to fold it where I can see and lay it right up along that edge as a guide. Maybe. And you could trace this with paper if you wanted. I'm going to scooch up a little bit so it feels like it's we'll do it one more time. I'll lay my guide here and put the glue on my 1/4 inch gusset. And eyeball it. This one looks a little higher than those two. Just a little bit. So this is where our pages are going to live and flap. So I'm just going to go on those little gusset areas now where we put the glue. Just take my finger and press. I've been giving them all a nice burnish where they live, so I think all of our pages will fold over nicely. Okay, then the other bonus thing that if you have a stapler handy, I've got a Tim Holtz like mini attacher, I think is what it's called. I'm going to show you, we're going to give some extra support on that hinge that we just added. So I just put my pin in my glitter glue. Let me get my stapler. I hope I have staples in it. So I'm going to take along here where we've added that little piece to our album cover. I'm going to staple one toward the end and then one up closer to the middle as far as I can go. And I'll do the same thing on my other end. So one close to the edge and one up as high as I can. So we're just adding extra support for this floating hinge to hold all of these pages that are going to come in. All right, so now we're ready to go. So I think I'm going to pause our video. This will be video 1, and then we'll add our insert pages and our pockets. I'll check the audio, see that we've been able to hear me okay, and if not, I'll start over. Hopefully not. All right, see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.